by way of introduction, just after you've done some of the housekeeping. So just to say, Emma is unfortunately not feeling very well, so Steph has kindly stepped into the breach this morning to cover off those duties. So I'd like to pass over to yourself, Steph, initially, and then I'll take it from there. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. The meeting is being recorded and will be published online afterwards. Could I ask all attendees to leave their camera on but switch off their microphone when not speaking? However, please switch both on when you are speaking so that this is picked up on the recording. If you do wish to speak, please use the raise hand function or indicate in the meeting chat. I'll now do a quick roll call and would ask that members confirm their attendance when their name is called so that this is clear in the recording and can also be recorded in the minute. Chair?
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Cook?
Yeah, present.
Councillor Gregg?
Present.
And Hussein Patwa?
Present. Good morning.
Thank you. And I have apologies from Ian Ramsey, Chair. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks very much for that, Steph. Just a few bits of kind of just managing the business for today, and then I'll again just say a few words just before we get started on the primary agenda itself. Just in terms of timings and running order, I know, Hussein, you've got to leave at 5 to 11, so we'll see how we've gotten through the business by then. It's not a huge agenda just for my first meeting as chair, so I guess thank you for that, for being relatively kind to me, but we'll see how the meeting goes. Yes, Hussein will need to leave at 5 to 11. And also, just in terms of the running order, it's going to take the business plan, the delivery plan update, sorry, after the business planner. I know Callum has also got some other commitments that can't be shifted, so we wanted to make sure that was covered off while Callum was here as well, so we'll do that. And also, we've got Lakshmi Kudlow here, who's our new Deputy Finance Officer. So great to see you with us, Lakshmi. Do you know everybody by now, or do you need any introductions be helpful for you?
I know most of them in this call, but not all. So it'll be helpful if a brief introduction. So hi, nice to meet you all.
Perfect. Thanks, Lakshmi. I know yourself just through previous business, so I'll just go around the screen in no particular order. John, I think you'll know, but John?
Yeah, good morning, Lakshmi. John Cook, Vice Chair of the IJB. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Good morning.
Bernie, you'll definitely know. So I would, and Steph, you might have not met Lakshmi yet.
No, morning. I'm Steph Dunsmuir. I work with Emma Robertson, who's the usual clerk for this meeting. I'm just covering the meeting today. Nice to meet you.
And also Fiona, you will definitely know. So again, don't be offended, Fiona, if I move on past you. Jamie?
Morning, Lakshmi. Jamie Dale, Chief Internal Auditor.
Hi, Jamie.
And John?
Hi, I'm John Forsyth. I'm one of the legal advisors. I work with Jess Anderson, who I think you've met.
Yes, I have. Hi, John.
Martin?
Hello, good morning. Lakshmi, good to see you. I'm Martin Gregg. I'm a member of Aberdeen City Council, and I'm a council-appointed member of the IJB and of this committee. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Martin.
Sandy?
I know Sandy. That's fine.
Oh, perfect. Good.
I think rest of them, yeah, I know.
You know the rest? Perfect. And I'll just double check if, and without picking on Anne McDonald, have you met Anne before? Do you need to do those introductions?
Sorry, I have to. I'm going meeting her today. So hi, Anne.
Hi there. Good to meet you.
You too.
Perfect. Perfect. No, okay. Thanks very much for that. Okay, colleagues. So in terms of yeah, so I'm delighted to pick up the role as chair of the RAPC and look forward to working with you all in that kind of slightly different role for me. And just to say a few things, just by way of, I guess, introduction in some senses, and also maybe just how I might want to work. But firstly, just again, thanks to Martin Gregg for leading the committee over the last wee while, just in terms of your kind of leadership role, Martin, much appreciated, very diligent and effective, so thanks very much for that. And I'll be looking forward to you continuing to be involved and question and comment as we go forward. So just a few things in terms of my kind of approach, and I totally get and recognise the important role we play in the overall governance of the IJB. So a really important committee. And for me, I really encourage participation in the meeting, but particularly from the formal members, but equally just in terms of any inputs that colleagues wish to make. So I actively encourage participation. There may be occasion where I might just pick on you in a nice way, just for comment or assurance, if you like, that you're content with where we get to in some of the items. And equally, while I'm chair, I will also still have some questions or comments as we go through the meeting as well. So I'll be playing that sort of chair role, but also clearly as a member of the committee as well. I'm really keen that we evidence our role in terms of how we perform scrutiny, how we get assurance and provide support, if you like, as a committee in terms of the RAPC remit. And I know we from time to time may get into some tricky topics, difficult issues, but at all times I'd be really keen, it'd be important that we treat each other with respect at all times as we go through those as well. So just in terms of how we kind of go about our business. And just on that, I know I'm chair and it's formal, but just in terms of the nature of this committee, I'm happy to be called Richie just as a first name thing just now, if you're content with that, just in terms of how we do our business. And that doesn't compromise the formality and importance of the topics, but just in terms of how we work as a committee. As part of coming in as chair, one of the things I've had a chat with Anne MacDonald and Fiona around was just around, I guess, reinforcing and just refreshing our purpose, if you like. And again, that's no, if you like, comment in terms of how we worked in the past, but just in terms of, and be particularly helpful for me as an incoming chair, and possibly for yourself as well, just to, I guess, have a development session, just to reflect how we perform our remit. So it's not just about what we do, but how we do it as well. So that's just as a heads up. There may be something appearing in your calendars in days, weeks to come, just to get that set up. And my intent would be to hold that before the next formal meeting of this committee in May. So the kind of things that we might cover, for example, would be the role and remit of the committee. As I say, not just what it is, but how we do it. That'll be around risk management, internal controls, governance, financial monitoring, annual accounts, performance, and also how effective we are as a committee as well. So that kind of focus. Conscious of people's diaries are really tight with time, so it'll be likely about a 90-minute approximately session, just in terms of managing expectations. So in part it'll be a bit of a refresher, which again is every kind of now and again is no bad thing to do, just to make sure we're doing what we need to do. And indeed we can evidence that as well. So just to guess, give you a heads up in that respect, that'll be winging its way to you. While that session was primarily for us as a RAPC committee, I'm content to open up invites to other members of the IGB if they're willing to attend, but just to say it is primarily for us bluntly in terms of how we perform our role, but I appreciate that we are part of that bigger cog of the IGB itself. So if other IGB members want to attend just for more, I guess, awareness raising purposes, then that's fine, but we'll focus on our own needs first. So we'll look to see what suitable dates might be possible as we get that in the diary. Okay, I think that's all by way of introduction just now. And if we can move towards the actual agenda, that'll be helpful. And if we note the risk appetite statement, which is a regular statement at the start of the agenda, just to help inform our consideration of the items that lie before us, which again is helpful just in terms of that reminder. 1.1 is declarations of interest or transparency statements. Do we have any declarations, Hussein?
Thank you very much, Richie. Out of an abundance of caution, and as I normally do, I will just make a transparency statement, and for hopefully of help to Steph as well. This is the same declaration as I've made in the previous IGB, in that I'm a member of the Mental Health Diverse Experiences Advisory Panel, which is a named partner in the Scottish Government's Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy. I'm also the lived experience representative on the Scottish Government's Mental Health and Wellbeing Leadership Board. Given the references to some of the high-level mental health issues in the papers, I thought I'd just make that transparency statement.
Perfect, thank you, Hussein. And in terms of exempt business for today, there is none, so that is fine. At item 2.1. Item 3.1 is the minute of the meeting of 19th of November. I wasn't going to just go through this page by page in detail. However, that's on pages 7 to 11 of our pack. Are members content that that's an accurate record, and can we approve those minutes?
Agreed.
Great, thank you. Seeing thumbs up and Hussein, thank you very much. And then we're on to the business planner. This is our regular item, which I think is very helpful just in terms of forward scan. The next meeting in May seems to be a bit more of a bumper compared to today's agenda, which is just part of our planning purposes. And I guess just to make reference back to our development session, one of the things that I or we may do is just have a wee bit of a reflection on the planner just on the back of that development session to make sure, as I say, that we've got our forward plans covered in terms of what we need to ensure we do as a committee, just to give that extra assurance. But Fiona, I'll bring you in this one. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Richie. And Steph, thanks very much for covering today. At short notice, appreciate I'm unable to attend. I just wonder, there's a couple of names we need to change on the planner, Richie, with Ian now replacing Claire, and as Lakshmi gets settled into the post, she'll replace him with Bernie. So I think we just need to do that, Stefan. Also from the last meeting, we probably need to add on a prescribing expenditure update. Richie, now I think it's probably worth doing a bit of a standalone rather than including it in just our budget update, but I'd be happy to take the guidance from yourself as chair. Thanks, Richie.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. And I've seen nods, I think, just when you suggested that kind of standalone item. So that's fine. If we can add that in and just update the names, Steph, that would be great. Thank you. Martin?
Thanks. It was just to ask what would be the purpose, maybe the content of that report. It sounds really important. So just a little bit more of a heads up on what we would anticipate there. Thanks.
Fiona?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. And I think it's one of our biggest financial pressures, and it continues every year. So Jonathan and I, when we were looking at the budget, and Barry and others for next year, we are putting in some additional money. But I think my concern, and excuse me, as it was raised at the last meeting, I think it is that continual increase, and it goes up by millions every year. That gives us significant financial pressures. So it was really just to have a look at that expenditure. Yeah. And I think share some of the work that we have been doing to try and get that expenditure down. So Caroline Howarth would be a key member round about that paper, along with Lakshmi. But I think it is really just to want to give you some assurance that we aren't just allowing it just to keep going up, that we are doing some work on it and give you that assurance, but also just to make sure that you are aware that this does continue being a pressure on us financially, and some of that's completely out with our control, the pressures that come with it. But I think it would just be helpful to take TRAPC. And I wondered, very mindful the next meeting's very busy, Richie, whether we make it August or later on. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm happy just to, I guess, maybe provisionally allocate it to August meantime. I appreciate there will be a bit of work to be done as well in advance of that. So that's fine. Just a couple of contextual things, I guess, just to add to that. As some of you may know, that I also chair a financial recovery board with the NHS Grampian, and one of the things that we do is some regular deep dives into areas and prescribing. This is, in a sense, perhaps an example of a bit of a deep dive for us as RAPC in terms of prescribing. And I think that's, again, a tool that we might want to look at as we manage our business, kind of looking ahead, just to give us a bit more detailed attention on certain matters for good reason. It's not just for interest's sake. It's with a bit of purpose behind it. So this would be a good example in terms of how we do that. And the connection back to the NHS Grampian work is that one of the things that I'm considering, and that's not for here, but it'll be for there, it is actually looking at hospital prescribing. So while so it's just to say we'll join that talk, which again just reinforces the fact that we need to do a careful bit of work in the background just to make sure we get the best outcome from that work. Martin, do you want to come back in?
Thanks. Yeah, just a quick comment to say that I'm very, very supportive. Prescribing is such a recurring challenge for our budget situation, and very often it seems quite difficult to control. not just the supply, but also the expectations. I think it's going to be, it's not going to be straightforward how we address it, but yeah, it is important that we do make an effort, give a strong focus on this, particularly given the scale of the economic challenge. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Martin. Thank you. Okay, are there any other comments, questions on the planner, or can we note that just with that discussion? Happy to note. Okay, good. See nods. Thank you very much. Okay, now I think this way just a slight tweak in the running order. So, Callum, if you're there, if I can hand over to you to introduce the delivery plan update item. Thanks.
I am here, yes. Good morning, and thank you very much for being so accommodating in terms of moving around the agenda for me. So I'm presenting the Q3 delivery plan update. The report seeks to provide assurance to the committee in relation to the progress of the delivery plan. And it's recommended that the committee note the information provided in the report and the appendices and are satisfied that the risks in the delivery plan are being monitored and feel assured with the mitigations that are highlighted within the appendices as well. The actual structure of the report, we have the covering report, which provides the contextual information required in terms of how the delivery plan has been developed and implemented. We've also attached a couple of appendices that provide some additional information that's useful for the committee to consider. In terms of the summary appendices, we provide a visual overview of the status of the delivery plan items by strategic aim, and we break this down to provide greater detail as to the reasons for particular brag statuses associated with delivery plan items, and we provide a deeper dive into actions which are not green in terms of the brag status, provide an explanation about why that's the case and any mitigating actions being put in place for them. We also highlight any projects whereby there is quantifiable, measurable progress that has been achieved within the reporting period. The second appendix provides a full summary of all delivery plan items, including those that are closed and completed. In terms of items that would be useful to draw the committee's attention to, these are listed under 4.5 within the covering report. As you'll note, there are 5 projects that are marked as closed and completed for this reporting period, the reasons for which are delineated in the covering report. I'm happy to take any questions or comments from the committee. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Callum. I shall open up to colleagues before I ask one or two queries myself. Martin, you're first off the mark.
Thank you, Richie. I want to go straight to the 2 reds. So there are some difficulties in implementing the new charging policy. So there's going to be further analysis. The S-bar evaluation is going to be carried out. I mean, I wondered what are in particular what is the relation of the new charging policy in addressing our financial situation as an IJB, because it would clearly be beneficial for us to move forward with this as soon as possible, turn this to a green. So what's the link with our economic situation there?
Alison, are you coming in that one, or Fiona?
So it's specifically to the link with the economic situation. I wonder if Jonathan wants to go first and I'll come in after.
Richie, I can do that. Thanks, Alison. Yeah, it's a very good point, Councillor Gregg. There is a link, obviously. We have income targets, income expectations. I'm not sure if you call them actually targets, because they clearly are reflective of people's means, the nature of the care that's being delivered, and so on. In terms of there are parameters that we're working with, and we've set those parameters based on the charging policy and its changes. So There's definitely a concern, I suppose, that's been raised as a risk and is in, I think, specific discussion. Alison perhaps will want to comment on actually what we're doing about it. But clearly there is a link, and there's a nature of how much income, of which is variable every year anyway. What I would say is we're always taking a bit of a risk in terms of what we think the relationship between care provided and income is going to look like. But at the moment, clearly, we've made some assumptions about what 26-27 looks like with the charging policy in place. So, Alison, does that give you a foundation on which to speak?
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Jonathan. Yeah, we are continuing to charge income. I think that's the most important thing to say. We've had a charging policy in place for quite some time, and it's been very successful in receiving income, and we are continuing to do that in the manner that we planned. The new charging policy introduces the concept of individual budgets, and this is about bringing fairness and equality across the board in the way that we charge. So that's a key change with this. Now, hopefully, we will also be maximising income by doing that. But the main thrust of the new policy is around about that, bringing that fairness into the process, and bringing more of that contribution that people make to the cost of their care, ensuring that is more complete in terms of what we pay for the care that's delivered. So there's a number of it's a very complex process. There's determining what the contribution to their care is. There's assessing who is eligible and can afford to pay, and then there's assessing what that actual contribution is. So there's a number of factors in there, and there's a number of systems and teams involved in being able to deliver that. So the complexity of that has meant that we haven't quite achieved where we wanted to be by this time. But we had a very detailed presentation from Amy, who's here and has her hand up, and I'm sure will add to anything that I've said here. But we had a very comprehensive presentation from the team that are working on the charging policy at SLT last week, and we agreed that we would go forward and ask for an extension to that implementation to April 2027, and we have some very detailed plans in place to ensure that we meet that timetable. We're very aware of the challenges, and we're working on them actively. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more assurance and comfort around that. But I don't know if we can jump straight to Amy maybe now to add anything else. Amy is very much closer to the charging policy than I am.
Yeah, thanks both. Yeah, Amy, in you come.
Morning, everyone. So I'm Amy Richer. I'm Planning and Development Manager for Adult Social Work, and I'm leading alongside Alison's team in terms of charging policy implementation. Alison's probably covered most things. It was just to give assurance. I think, the nature of the lead-in time for RAPC, we're considerably further forward at this point than we were when the delivery plan information was put forward. So the service update went to our senior leadership team last week, as Alison's mentioned, to outline the kind of complexity of the challenges that we have in terms of implementing in a kind of very future sustainable way with this charging policy. So it's very dependent between finance, social work and ICT, and us working together to ensure we have a really comprehensive process and systems in place. But we have done that, and that the service update is intended for Finance and Resources Committee Chair and for IJB members within the next week. So we're just seeking some final comment on that, and we will be able to share that as well.
Right. Thanks very much, Alison and Amy. That's really very reassuring to hear, because my interest in asking about that red status is on the impacts of around service delivery, because it's highlighted particularly in the finance report, rising costs. We've got a challenging budget situation to deal with, and yeah, it's how we manage the rising costs, translate that into charging, and just try and minimise, share the burden of responsibility. So the teamwork that's underway, involving finance, the professionals, everybody, that's really helpful, so that we're aware of the practicalities of changing the charging policy, and how that might impact on individuals and their families. So that's helpful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. And just going to bring Amy and Jonathan back in. I think that and Fiona, indeed, the service update that's planned, I think, is really helpful. And I think, and Martin, you've covered off the question very well in terms of this particular topic, and just understanding, I guess, what the game plan now is in terms of timescales and deliverability, and also what implications there therefore might be just in terms of our own plans in terms of the service, as you say, but also I guess the financial implications around that. So accepting it's work in progress, I think just keeping us updated would be really, really helpful. But Amy, Jonathan, and then Fiona.
Yeah, it was just as Martin rightly mentioned in terms of the impact on service users. So we're really conscious of that and ensuring that we've got a really kind of proactive communication plan with our service users. So despite there being a delay, we are issuing our first phase communications within the next week with those that are already chargeable, to inform them of 5% uplifts, which were agreed by committee in December in terms of existing charges, but also that this charge is coming and that we will continue to communicate with them and support them through that change.
That's great, because I think that charging policy does raise concerns with the individuals, with patients and so forth. So keeping them informed is essential. So thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay, Jonathan, you want to come back in as well?
Thanks, Richie. Amy covered one of the points that I was going to make, and I'll just emphasise our continued income and recovery approach. This is not about actually undermining an income stream. It was about changing the policy and I suppose the parameters of some of those. But as Amy just said, we're updating as we would expect to, and the IJB would expect us to, in terms of the charges going forward, and we'll continue to collect income throughout the year. And what I was going to say is we're, and probably nicely timed in terms of Lakshmi joining us now with this dedicated post in the way that we formed it. The intention is that Lakshmi will have oversight of our finance team that's around financial assessments and so on. We've already spoken about how that then works, and I think that brings a closer interaction and bonding, if you like, between the finance team and the social care teams, in order to make sure that actually we're all working towards one purpose, as one group. And I think we can hopefully reap the rewards of that in the coming months. Just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, very helpful, Jonathan. Thanks for that. And Fiona.
So my points on the second red update. So I don't know if there's anything else you want on that first, Richie. Thanks.
Thanks. We'll just maybe pause there for a second. Martin, were you finished in that one? Do you want to come back in just now?
No, I'm really happy. I'm really grateful for those responses. I did have a second question on the other red, on the housing, just to ask for an explanation around that, just some further details on that, because that is worrying. What is the blockage in terms of the housing, of getting the housing organised?
Yep, I thought you might ask around that one, Martin. Thank you, Fiona.
Yeah, thank you, Richie, and thank you, Martin, for the question. So I actually met with Jackie McKenzie, who's the Chief Officer, who's responsible for housing, again this week. So this has been some work that's been ongoing now for a number of years, actually, the transitioning for very sheltered housing, sheltered housing complexes going to very sheltered housing, and it's it sounds simple and you think it's going to be simple, but believe me, it's a lot of work. And I think we're engaging also with Stephen Booth, who's the corporate landlord, because this is something that we're making decisions that will impact across residents in Aberdeen City for decades to come. So we want to make sure we're doing this right. And I think that's where we're taking the slight hesitancy as chief officers, because we want to be assured that the decisions we make are the right ones to make for the local population. So it is read, it completely sits with the chief officers because we are still anxious and we're not getting all the guarantees that we need that we're making the right decisions. So I'm quite comfortable it remains read until we get that, because we want to make the right decisions. So as I say, met with Jackie again at the beginning of the week just to make sure that we are getting to a place where we think we can move forward. So appreciate it is read. I take full responsibility for it because we just, as I say, want to get this right. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I mean, I think that having the red there is quite positive, because it's a kind of a reminder, a kind of a warning, providing the right kind of housing, particularly for people with varying needs, complex needs, is important. But I've got every confidence that you and your teams are working on this. It's so important. So thank you.
Thanks both. Sandy, did you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, it was just to give maybe Fiona a prompt. Fiona, you might want to give the committee assurance about the recent joint housing post that you've now made to kind of give an indication of targeted work just in that context.
It's a good prompt, Sandy, thank you. So yeah, just to excuse me, update ourselves at the committee. So last week we successfully have offered, or we have identified and offered a post. So this is a new post that we have created. It's a housing integration manager. I'm not looking at Jonathan while I'm saying this, so it's going to be a 50-50 fund between ourselves and housing. And this individual, as we've offered the post, we're just going through the formal HR processes, will be an absolute key person. Well done. Thank you, Sandy, in moving this forward for us. So yeah, as I say, really excited to get that post in place. And I think, we're very aware the impact housing has on health and social care needs and all the rest of it. So it will be a key role for us moving forward. And hopefully we'll get them in post quite quickly. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. John, I know you've been waiting really patiently. I've got just a couple of follow-ups just on the housing one before I come to you. Just for my clarity, that the sheltered housing, the review work, in terms of governance, is that a city council decision that we are working in partnership with, just in terms of the governance of it? And secondly, I guess it's just that as we get the updates through, it is about the implications for us as a health and social care partnership and IJB. Would just be helpful to tease out as we get the further updates on it, just so we can again join the dots around what we need to be most interested in, if you like. But Fiona.
So you're correct, Richie, it is an ACC. It was a direction from a committee, I won't say how long ago, but a number of years ago. And I think, yeah, so that absolutely. I think one of the things we're really keen to look at is, we know the demand for residential care homes is going down. So I'm not speaking about care homes in general, I am speaking about what traditionally we would have called residential care homes. And I think that's one of the things we want to make sure that we're doing this right, because we've seen a reduction in that demand even more starkly recently. And I think that's where we're a little bit hesitant to say, because will that swing? But actually that very sheltered housing complexes, so working with our providers, we believe that's the right model. It keeps people to be as independent as possible. So it's just making sure that we're connecting it all up, and that we are very thoughtful of our providers that are already established in Aberdeen City and how we take them with us on that. So I think from an IGB point of view, that's the key thing for us, is do we get the model right to meet the needs of our population that we're there? And that's where we're just a little bit hesitant, because we want to make sure we get it right, Richie. So that would be from an IGB to make sure that we have the right facilities in Aberdeen City to support the people that we need to support in their own homes. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks. And it's just an opportunity to get through this report particularly, and or if we need a separate update that's more fulsome, just in terms of that particular IGB kind of consequences or implications for us. That's really helpful. Okay, thanks. And John, apologies for getting you waiting.
Thanks, Richie. No apology necessary. It seemed to be sensible to kind of keep those conversations going. Yeah, I've just got a kind of broader question about some of the both the reds and the ambers. I know when we've looked at similar documents in the past, and I've asked the question, why is this amber? quite often the answer is, well, it was amber at the time the report was written, but it'll probably be green tomorrow. So I'm just wondering, do we think we'll be in a much prettier position in terms of the greens in, say, 6 months or a year's time? Or the other thing that I'm thinking about is that when I look at the reasons for delay, there's a kind of recurring theme of timescale and resources. So the question in my head is, are we trying to do too much? I mean, I know we only adopted the strategic plan last July, but are we biting off more than we can chew? And if we are, I'm at least partly responsible for it because I voted for all that stuff. But yeah, discuss.
Yeah, thanks, John. Alison, you want to come in that one?
Yeah, thanks, John, for that. When we developed the strategic plan and the year one delivery plan, we were trying to reduce the amount that we were trying to do. I think you're absolutely correct in that we are guilty of being over ambitious sometimes, but we were aware of our sort of reducing capacity, and we did, if you recall, reduce the number of projects that we committed to quite significantly. I think we had 80 odd in the year 3 delivery plan of the previous strategic plan, and we're down to around about 30, which we thought were doable. But some of these ones were pretty meaty, pretty complex, and just to say we're kind of learning lessons from that, and we're in the process of developing our year 2 delivery plan. And in fact, the thinking is now that what we'll be presenting is not just a year 2 delivery plan, it will be a delivery plan for year 2, 3, and 4 of the strategic plan, because what we're focusing on now is the larger transformational projects that you can't achieve within a single year. That there's a phasing and milestones to achieve. You need to build some foundations before you can move on and make the change. So similar, in line with the discussions we've had about longer term financial planning, we're also now considering longer term delivery planning, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think you mentioned, are these ambers suddenly going to go green, or the reds suddenly going to go amber? No, they're not. And I think what in the main, but I think what you will see, we're planning to bring the next iteration of the delivery plan to this committee in May. So hopefully what you'll see there is that evidence of that sort of longer term planning, but also what you might see is some of these projects rolling over into that, the fact that their timescales have extended, or they're maybe becoming part of a larger transformational program. So that's where it's going. So hopefully that answers your question, John. But I see Callum maybe wants to come in and add to what I've said.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I think Alison covered a lot of things I was going to say. I think just maybe a couple of additional points. So the reasons why categorization that we put in, I think one of the things that's really useful about that is it does really help us inform the design of delivery projects moving forward. So we can see in terms of the previous year, well, actually a lot of the pressures are coming from the same places as you've identified, and that helps us think about, well, how can we potentially sort of create and design projects in a way which minimizes those types of risks reoccurring on a frequent basis. So it's not just useful in terms of providing assurance, but it's also useful in terms of our own sort of internal planning. So I think that's probably the first point. And I think the second point in terms of the actual brag status, you might recall one of the things that we did for the start of this delivery plan is we revised our criteria. And one of the things that we very intentionally decided to do was be much stricter in terms of how we're defining whether projects are red, amber, or green. And essentially what we're now doing is that if any one element of a project is potentially at risk, then we'll score the whole overall project as amber. So perhaps in a previous year, all of them might have actually been green, whereas now we're actually saying, well, look, you know what, we have a lower threshold, if you like. So whilst there may be elements of it which are all going really, really well, if there's any one bit of it which we have sort of any type of doubt over, if you like, then we keep it at that level. I think that's really, really useful just in terms of making sure we're really on top of the mitigations and kind of not getting complacent. So just a couple of little bits of additional clarification there.
Thanks both. Yeah, sorry, John, you want to come back?
Yeah, just to say that I mean that's really reassuring. The only other thing I would add is that if at some point officers think there's something that we're trying to do and actually it's not going to work, they shouldn't be reticent about coming forward and saying we need to drop this or we need to change the timescale on this, because you're not failing, you're just adapting to changing circumstances and reality. So that's the only encouragement I'd give on that.
Yeah, thanks, John. Just to follow up on I think the broader point you make, which is really helpful, that the explanations in many cases are good. One of the things that I think is in reading the report and just conversation is that sometimes the deadlines or the timescales aren't there or aren't clear. So accepting that there are amber and that's part of the definition is that it's maybe going beyond timescale. Actually, for some of it, from our perspective, in terms of scrutinising and being assured, some of that could be a bit tighter. So if it's going to, so for example, the GP vision was one I kind of picked out. There's more of them, accepting that not all that activity can be achieved. There's no sense of what the implications fully of that might be, but also when it might therefore be done, or if it's going to be done. Just John's point. So this is something there around maybe for the future iterations. Just I guess anticipating that if we're saying something is perhaps not going to meet its deadline, if we don't know what the deadline is or it's not clear, then that's harder for us, I guess, just to get a sense of how that's going to be mitigated. Callum, do you come in the back of that?
Yeah, again, I think someone mentioned a point around some of the challenges to do with lead times, and one of the things which we've actually implemented for I think one of the previous updates, which hasn't had time to join this committee, is trying to be much more explicit within the latest updates around sort of key timelines, if you like, of which particular deliverables have been achieved or will be being achieved. So I think that's really helpful feedback and is something which we are actively implementing at the moment. So you should hopefully see some of those changes being implemented for the next reporting cycle.
Great, thanks. And just before I bring in Martin, Alison, your point around some of this is a kind of, it's not just it's not just a defined April to March plan. Some of this will roll on a lot beyond that. So that's just a natural kind of progression, if you like. So again, totally get that it's a live document in that sense. And that, I guess, implicit within this conversation is John's other point around capacity and just prioritisation and realism around what's been able to be achieved. So again, for us, it's just full visibility in terms of that kind of thought process, so we can understand, I guess, if there are changes to be made around what we're doing or what time we're doing it within, then we can see that. That's totally understandable. Okay, thanks. Martin?
Thank you, Richie. I think the delivery plan structure is really helpful. And in particular, the dashboard enables us to have a quick overview of where the challenges are. So, for example, public mental health and aging well, I imagine large scale priorities, but there is highlighted and there's great enthusiasm amongst staff, but there is mention there of staffing pressures, of limited volumes within the teams. So it's helpful to see that. I really wanted to ask about about one that's disappeared or disappearing off of the plan, which is the healthy weight. One at 26. I mean, there's an explanation there. We've got the narrative, the action plan on healthy weight. Would you? I mean, it disappears from our awareness. So would it be safe to assume that that's because the actions, the issues identified have just become embedded within the professional teams? It looks very, very positive, but we just kind of lose sight of what's happened with something that's gone well. So
Callum, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, this is a bit of work that I'm involved in, so yeah, I can respond to that. So I think so the just for reassurance, I think the healthy weight work is something which, as a public health improvement priority, is something that we very much see as a priority which is likely going to continue throughout the strategic plan. So this is going to be a multi-year priority. Because of that, really what we were looking to do in this financial year, it was around developing the action plan itself. So that's why the actual measurable within this year's delivery plan is the creation of the action plan. So in terms of the big milestone that we wanted to achieve for this financial year, which is getting that plan put together, it's something we've achieved. It's something that we have achieved. In terms of the actual implementation of that is something which we are now beginning to think about, right? Well, how do we operationalize that plan and put it into action? And it's something which we're going through developing the second year delivery plan, but it's something which is likely going to feature in that in terms of the actual implementation of the plan. So I guess it's just to reassure the committee that whilst we have delivered what we'd set out to do, which was the creation of the plan, we are continuing the work behind the scenes in terms of, right, well, how do we put that plan into action? And so that's something which we'll begin to report on and come the sign off of the second year of the new delivery plan.
Great. I mean, that's really helpful, because the aging well line and the mental health line, those are, we've got a sense that those are ongoing, despite challenges with staffing numbers. It's underway, and in a similar way, the healthy weight is a long-term strategic issue for us. So being able to monitor and keep an eye on the performance around the healthy weight actions would be really helpful in some way, because it is a long-term health issue.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, and I think what this demonstrates is actually, in terms of where we're at with the healthy weight work, it is slightly further ahead than the population mental health work and the aging well work, because you'll note that all three of them, sort of our core deliverable, if you like, is to develop our action plan. So that's almost our first big milestone. So we've achieved that with the healthy weight work. We're still on track to achieve that, and with the two other bits as well. So yeah, that's the one that's probably the furthest on at this stage. But yes, the implementation of that is going on behind the scenes, and I think it's maybe something for us to consider, which is how do we best sort of keep the committee up to date with that.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, it is a rather speculative question, but I would assume that there are different measures and actions for different ages and background within the healthy weight plan, and there will be some relatively quick wins, but there would have to be that slow burn solution in place. So yeah, thanks very much for that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks both. Alison, did you want to just comment on that one as well?
Yeah, just briefly, thank you. Just to give a little bit of further assurance, obviously, healthy weight is a key thing, not just for the partnership, but for the city. And we do actually have a proposed system change in the refreshed local outcome improvement plan around about healthy weight as well. So it is not just the delivery plan and the actions that the partnership do in the delivery plan. Obviously, we're working with our community planning partners to look at the health of the population of Aberdeen City as a whole. So you'll see that the system changes are out for consultation just now, and the refreshed local outcome improvement plan is due to go to the community planning board in June. So hopefully you'll see the actions around about healthy weight in there as well. So it was just to reassure you that this is not the only place that healthy weight is considered.
Great. Okay, thanks, Alison. Folks, you've given this item a fair airing, so again, thanks very much for your questions and discussion. And just to say that acknowledge that there's a ton of work that goes on behind this. So we're seeing, I guess, a summarised version of a whole heap of activity, and there's lots of really good stuff going on. And just to say that I found for example, the summary and best use of resources and some of the activity that the achievements there in terms of what's been saved and what's been done was really good. So really welcome that. Yeah, and thanks very much for all kind of contributing to the paper before us today. So with that, folks, can we turn to the recommendations on page 75? We've got two recommendations there, 2.1A and B. So I'm not going to read them out word for word, but we've got page 75, 2.1A and B, and that's around us noting and considering the plan and satisfied that the plan's been monitored with mitigations contained therein. Are we content to note that, folks? Agree with those recommendations?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yep. Good, great. Thank you. And thank you, Callum. We've got you away with 4 minutes to spare just about, maybe. Okay, and Hussein, I'm conscious you'll be just dropping off shortly as well. But with that, folks, we turn back to the substantive agenda again, and we are on now 4.1. Go back to 4.1 and Q3 update on finance and financial risk mitigations. Bernie, I think you're introducing this one.
Yes, hi, good morning, everybody. I have to say this, I believe everybody has had a read of the report, but basically it's a combination of two vital elements. One is an update on our Q3 results, and of course the other one is all about the financial mitigation actions that we have carried out so far in observance and cognizance of several audit recommendations coming from both our external auditors, internal auditors, and of course within our own strategic risk register. I might be leaving earlier on as well, so if there are any questions that comes about, I might leave, say, about 11:15, but Jonathan is very much around to answer any other potential questions that you might bring up. I now open the floor for any questions that you might want to raise.
Yep, perfect. Thanks, Bernie. And I've seen Jonathan quivering with excitement at that prospect. So that's good. Hussein, your hand was up first.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much, and thank you as always for the paper, Bernie. It's firstly, can I just welcome, as I'm sure we all would, a favourable financial position in terms of a surplus that we're looking at in the end of the year. I'm particularly interested in the point around figure 3 on agency locum spend, and this ties in, I think, quite helpfully to some of the papers later on, which you'll discuss on the agenda around safe staffing, but also the paper from internal audit. And I just wondered how we square this. What are some of the drivers for the agency and locum spend with respect to mental health? And given that we approved a strategy last year which has implications for workforce numbers, and given the paper that we have later on in the agenda around the importance of safe staffing and our commitment to do what we can to reduce locum spend, I'm just wondering how we square that, and if we have a better understanding of what is causing the position that we see in the Q3 report, and how we get to a more balanced position whilst also providing the staffing that we need in this area.
Thanks, Hussein. Fiona, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, happy. So when I wish Caroline Howard was here, but she's not, so I will do my best. So Hussein, thank you for the question. So first of all, the simple one to answer straight away is the Health and Care Staff Act. So medical staff are not part of that act, so it's not relevant. So that's that takes that one out, so it's not relevant. But of course, we want to have a safe and appropriate staffing for medical staff, although it's not part of the formal act. So medical locums. So there's been a lot of work done in the last year with our mental health medical staffing, and we've had locums there for and I'm speaking across Grampian, but City is absolutely part of it. We've had locums in mental health for many years because we've struggled to recruit the same. So it's definitely been one of those areas, and it's not just a local. It's definitely challenged local, but it is a national challenge that we have around consultant psychiatrists, whether that's in learning disabilities, substance use, or older adults, acute adults. So it's across the board. We have struggled. We did a lot of work a number of years ago in Grampian on the Caesar Fellows. So this was something that actually our mental health colleagues led on, and this was giving people a different career path. So once they're qualified as doctors and giving them a path. So we've done a lot of work on that, and that has given us some consultant workforce coming through. We've also, as you're aware, Alistair Palin, who's the Clinical Director for Mental Health and Learning Disability Services, has been looking at the budget across Grampian for the last year to try and get us a more sustainable model. And I think we're starting to see a reduction in our locums, and he's doing that work with trying to make jobs look more attractive for same. So there's been certain pockets that we've really struggled, and I'm talking about cross Grampian here, that we've really struggled to recruit to. So if we can make the jobs, if we can have a bit more flex within the workforce, can we make job plans more attractive to people to try and encourage them? So the 3 chief officers have agreed that we will do that to give us that sustainable workforce. And I think we are starting to see some benefits from that. The team are saying hopefully within the next 18 months with the plan that we have, and with the trainees that are coming through, that we should hopefully move away from the majority of the locum work that we have. Now, we can ask trainees informally, would they like to stay in Grampian, but we can't hold them to that decision. So we have had really positive conversations with our trainees about remaining in the local area. So if that does come off, as I say, the next 18 months, we should see a significant shift away from the locums, which will be the first time for, as I say, we've had some locums around for 10 years. So it's a significant amount of work has been a focus in the last year to 18 months to try and reduce that locums across mental health and learning disabilities. Does that answer your question, Hussein, or do you want any more detail?
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that, Fiona. I think that's very helpful, and I think you make a really good point about that wider offer. The job is part of it, but we want people who are in area to stay in area. We want people who are coming to the area to have that holistic offer. It's about putting down your roots. It's about your family life. It's about your home life. It's about making Aberdeen and making Grampian a place that you want to stay in, not just a place that you want to work in. So I think I welcome the fact that there's that kind of broader look into how to make that whole package offer more attractive to people. Richie, I do need to drop off now, so I'll hold it there, but I see people may want to come in on the back of this. Just to say, I did have another question around set-asides, which I just, for some reason, cannot get my mind around. But if Bernie is amenable to it, I will send her an email after the meeting. I think that's probably an explanation that she could just clarify to me by email, if that's acceptable. But in the meantime, I will excuse myself with apologies.
Yeah, of course, Hussein. Thank you. Thanks, Hussein.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Fiona, do you want to, I appreciate Hussein's left, but just for, again, we've got it recorded, but just to follow up, do you want to come back in just on the back of what he said?
Yeah, and I suppose I should have maybe mentioned it. First of all, so NHS Grampian have been working with NES, which is obviously the training body for medics, well, for all of health staff, but medics are part of that for trainees, on a new GP, it's called a GP training hub, but it's actually going to include mental health and learning disabilities as well. So this is a new service that's been set up, and so say mainly funded, and it's working alongside with David Blackburn, who most of our members will know from the University of Aberdeen. And this is to give people exposure while they're training to primary care, and we've also extended that out to mental health and learning disability. So again, it's another opportunity to let people try before they make the decision, I suppose, Richie, for the want of a better word, try before they buy or try before they commit. So they will, we're hoping that the hub will open in late springtime, and this will let trainee medical staff go there and work and get exposure to primary care settings and also now mental health and learning disabilities, so they can see that career trajectory and hopefully encourage other people to go into that path as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Fiona, very helpful. Martin. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Richie. It is a very encouraging, very favourable Q3 report. I'm very grateful for all of the effort, the creativity that's gone into achieving the position where we're at. I mean, it cannot have been difficult. I wanted to kind of come back to that theme of impact. So, adult social care has quite considerably underspent. I'm looking at the Section 22 requirements, and I'm just and the IJB is committing to reviewing how it works operationally in teams with sharing skill sets and so forth. So I'm just wondering if there are if we're seeing the positive consequences from that kind of more collaborative approach. I mean, that came through very strongly in the GERFI conference last year, that working together we can achieve more, we can share our resources. So is that helpful? Because I would like to know about the impacts of those savings in adult social care, also in the primary care delivery. I mean, that's achieved a lot economically, but what's the practical side of all of that, if that makes sense?
Okay, who's wanting to try and grapple with that? There's a few things perhaps Martin's covered off there. Fiona, well done.
Well, I'm going to smile sweetly and hope some of my team come in and help here. And Amy, I don't know if there's anything you want to pick up about the social work. So obviously we've had Kate, one of Amy's peers, doing a lot of work around about our contracts, working with our providers. And I think we've been very focused this year on driving efficiency. So are we as efficient as we need to be? Are we getting best value for what we are investing in? And I think that's been a significant piece of work. I don't know, Amy, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think as a service, as well as obviously having the specific actions around savings, there's a lot of kind of improved governance work that we've been doing as a service. So examples including our nursing home panels and the kind of scrutiny around placements and making sure that absolutely that's the most appropriate place for that person. And if not, we're looking at community resources. So I think it's just those day-to-day decision-making processes that we've really tightened up on to make sure that when we are allocating budgets, it's the right way for the outcomes for that person. So I think that's where we're seeing some of that change. It's harder to quantify, but I think definitely part of it.
Thanks. And what we'll do, Martin, we'll get colleagues just to maybe just respond, and they'll come back to you, Martin, if there's any kind of queries that are remaining beyond that. Jonathan?
Thanks, Richie. I suppose my contribution was going to be about we continue to work on our budgets. I would say that we saw a lot of shift in terms of the actual detail as to where those budgets sit. Bernie's done a huge amount with the senior leadership team in terms of actually information sharing, but knowledge building in terms of this past 6-7 months, and we'll continue to move that on with Lakshmi in terms of just how do we better understand, I suppose, all of the data that then supports the building of those budgets, because there are some invariances that I think you've picked out there from a financial position that actually we're clearly taking benefits and adverse variances together in order to come back to the position we are hoping to arrive at and aiming to arrive at. But that I think means that we continue to work together, both across the health sector and the council sector, in order to make sure they were combining and getting that mix right, but also getting to the root problem or root data issues of knowing what it is that we need to build for those budgets. And I think you've seen in other reports from Bernie over the course of this year about how we're improving the data sources that exist, that we're relying on and building upon in order to move us forward. This is not a static position. And I think we will continue to look as we move into 26/7 and we take the budget report on the 17th of March through the IJB. We'll continue to look at what the right blend, if you like, of those budgets, and in order that people can have the assurance they need as managers for those budgets and how they fit together. I'll let Bernie add anything further. Apologies, Bernie, if I've just said what you were going to say.
It's okay. Now, since Martin has homed in to section 5.2 of our report, which actually refers to section 22, basically coming from Audit Scotland's report on NHS Grampian, okay? It's not a very forgiving report. That's one thing. It is very clearly stating that in order for the NHS Grampian themselves to be financially sustainable, the IJBs, and this is not isolated to the city IJB, it also covers the other IJBs that the NHS Grampian is partnering with. They made specific mention that in order for them to survive, there's no other better word, all the IJBs have to deliver financial sustainability measures themselves. Now, Jonathan and Fiona has been actively partnering, collaborating, and I've been part of the several discussions that they've had with the NHS Grampian team in reference to finding better ways where we can not cut cost, but manage our cost. Coining what Fiona keeps on saying, best value. We're trying to identify sources of service and cost elements that we can efficiently manage. Don't overuse, but efficiently use in order to meet what had been recommended in this Section 22 report produced by, I believe, Anne and her team, right? So that's just one bit. So I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Bernie. Sandy?
Yeah, thank you. Picking up from Fiona, with the early part of the question was about collaboration, and I'm just going to make this observation around our budget savings targets. I think one thing that the senior team has become really good at is collaborating across the range of our responsibilities and not just focusing on our own area of responsibility. And I think Fiona and we have taken a focus that tries to say, what is the thing that will impact least on clients, least on patients? And let's do that long before we do anything else. So we have been successful in driving that policy through in terms of reducing our estate, reducing our cost of our estate. And then also, to be honest, part of that includes reducing the size of our headcount in posts that are not directly clinical or directly not frontline social care posts. And I think I certainly would say we've all been influenced. Claire Wilson's not here, or Ian either, but I think we've been strongly influenced by, we're trying to focus our savings to make sure that there's less savings required on direct social care. I think we've been strongly in doing it. I personally certainly can think of some of my things, if you like, that I have now realised are less bad than some of the things that social work might have had to do. So I think we've been strongly collaborating with a focus on least impact on frontline services.
Thanks, Andy. Very helpful. And Alison.
Sorry, I hit that button by mistake.
No, that's fine. Thank you. I've got a couple of comments just in the back of that myself, but Martin, just you've heard a fair bit of response there. Any additional questions beyond that, or queries, comments?
I guess it's more of a comment. I mean, it's really helpful to hear that there's that kind of review underway that Amy mentioned, where there is the focus on how to deploy our finite resources in as efficient and sustainable a way as possible. The ensuring the quality of service delivery, especially in adult social care, that is vital. So when you're looking at an equation of growing risks, growing budget pressures, there's clearly a willingness to be critical, to scrutinise processes, ways of working, so that teams still get job satisfaction, still delivering, but with that, but working around those pressures and finding new solutions, new ways of working. And I think that includes, there's mention there that includes using the tools that are available, the D365, the digital technology that's available. I mean, it's potentially an opportunity for a time for creativity and for exploring how can we collaborate better. So what I'm hearing is really encouraging. It is a time of huge change, but there's clearly a very strong, healthy, positive appetite for getting involved in the interests of the people, the patients that we serve. So yeah, really grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin, and thanks, colleagues, for that. Just very briefly, and more for information, really, just in terms of the Section 22 report, colleagues from NHS Grampian are attending a Parliament Audit Committee tomorrow, in fact, just to discuss the findings. And NHS Grampian are not the only health board in that kind of territory, if you like. So again, that's just for information. I can also say that, and I'll come back to it at the end of after John's spoken, just comments around my comments in this paper, but in terms of the financial position within NHSG, that is also at this stage promising, favourable in terms of the in-year position, which is very helpful. And part of that also is as a result of that collaboration that, again, we've talked about just a few minutes ago across the three IGBs and NHS Grampian and the City Council and the City Council, Shire Council, and Moray Council. So that joined up thinking and planning is just so important in terms of making sure that we get the kind of right balanced outcome in terms of what we do, not just in terms of money, but in terms of service delivery as well. So that was just more for updates and information. John, please.
Thanks, Richie. Yeah, Q3 is clearly very encouraging. And also on the Section 22 report, one of the things that the Auditor General said was we need to be better at financial management. The thing I'd say on that is that if I think back to kind of mid-2024, because the report is on the 24-25 year, it seems to me, and I think it's been highlighted in some of the comments, that our financial management today is significantly stronger than it was 18 months, 2 years ago, which I think is a good thing. So we're kind of making progress on that. The one area that worries me is that, again, the Auditor General says we need to move to new delivery models, and I think everyone would embrace and agree with that, and I think actually every IJB across Scotland would agree with that. The thing that kind of worries me a bit is that if you're moving to a new delivery model, you want the patient or the service user to have a seamless transition, which means that you've got to build a new delivery model while you're still operating the existing delivery model. And we know that we're really resource constrained. So where do we find the resources to do the two at the same time? Sorry if that sounds a bit sort of private Fraser-ish, but interested in comments.
Yeah, no, fair question, John. Big question. Fiona, do you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, I'll certainly start, and any of the team feel free to join in. So I agree, John. It's definitely not easy. I think the team, we've done a lot of work over the last 18 months, 2 years of better budgets, as you say, and I think we've definitely got a much stronger grip and control, and delight to have Lakshmi around and hearing this conversation, so she knows the size of the mountain that we're climbing, but we're getting much nearer the top, Lakshmi. So I think one of the things we've done is we as a senior leadership team are very aware that we have now got to start to transform our services, John. So it's a key thing in our strategic plan for 25 to 29, because I think we have done all the cuts that we can do. Now we need to really change how we deliver services. And that's definitely our challenge this year, is along with the saving proposals that will be coming up to the IGB next month, is that to deliver that, we need to start really doing transformation. So I think we're up for it. We like a challenge in Aberdeen City. I was just speaking to one Alison's team yesterday about our digital strategy and where we're going with that and what we need to do, because I think digital is absolutely one of our opportunities to make sure that we're getting that best value for money by using tech and digital much more than we have been. So we're up for the challenge. The senior leadership team and our wider teams are absolutely up for the challenge. It's not going to be easy, and I think we have got a really good, Alison's got a great team about that community engagement, John, because I think that'll be really vital as how we take people with us. So Matt and Grace and others who are really connected in with our communities will be key, as I say, because we need to do this, co-design our services with the people that use them, and that will absolutely be a priority for us in this next financial year that we're going into. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Fiona. Sandy, you want to add to that?
Yeah, just picking up John's point about delivering services, I guess part of what we're trying to do is change and manage public expectations about what we actually deliver, what we don't, or this is where we deliver it over there, rather than across the road from you or your granny or whatever, you know. And I think there's a big challenge there in shifting public expectations. So, for example, we're obviously challenged. We're working with the ARI colleagues in Shire about people coming out of hospital. And a very regular one I was bringing up with Grampian yesterday, where people will say, yeah, there's a community hospital bed in Fraserburgh, but my granddad doesn't want to go there. He lives in Stonehaven, and that's not fair, and I'm not prepared to accept that. So I think we have to challenge those things. Now, that is easy to say in the kind of sanctity of this room. I appreciate that's hard to do, but that's the kind. So it's not just about changing services, John. I think we're also saying we don't do that anymore now, or we do it over there and we don't do it 5 times in Grampian. We only do it once in Grampian, as an example. And that's the kind of direct opportunity we've got with Fiona working with our chief officer colleagues. We've got quite a few things that we did 3 times, 5 times, and now do once. You know, so I think there's an element to that as well. We're having to work together.
Thanks, Andy. John, come back to yourself.
No, just thanks for that. I mean, I don't underestimate the size of the challenge, and yeah, I think Sandy, you make a really good point around managing public expectations. So yeah, let's kind of fingers crossed and stick with it.
Yeah, thanks for that. And just sort of final, I've got a comment and a question from myself. I'll just give a comment first. I mean, just to reiterate the points we made about the effort and the work's gone on to get us to this promising financial position. Again, we're not at the year ends, we're not going to count chickens, if you like, and never be complacent. But nonetheless, it would be remiss not to acknowledge that the work's been done to date to get us to where we're at. So thanks very much to everybody in that regard. Tons of work still to do, of course. Just feel obliged to say that, but that's really important to keep the momentum going. And just in terms of, I guess, additional comment, the report seeks to cover quite a bit of ground in terms of the Q3 update in terms of finances, but also that mitigation of financial risks in the audit kind of world. So again, we'll come back to the recommendations just to get it formally close those off in a minute. But just it might be one I was kind of reflecting on this, and are we trying to do too much within this report or not? I think it's fine where we're at, but just I guess just to stick that comment to the wall, and we can maybe have a conversation about that around the development session and kind of forward planning and such like. So again, appreciate any initial comment. That's fine, but again, happy just to we can pick that up after today. Very happy with that also. And the question was around it was the negative variances on page 20, and again, this might be one excuse me, that needs a bit of thought kind of off table, and it's that and some of these matters are difficult to forecast or predict. It's about demand really. Around the transitioning from child to adult services and costs associated, and then increased rates and commissioning costs and more care packages. Saying we're not in total control of that. I get that. I guess my question that I'd be interested in is back to kind of, I guess, potentially data issues that I think Jonathan mentioned earlier in a broader sense. Is are there ways that in terms of for next year we can mitigate or maybe reduce the chance of surprises in that respect happening in these areas. So I guess I'm just conscious of, if that's an experience we've had from this year, what can we do to reasonably mitigate that for next year in terms of, I picked on those two areas in particular, but just as an example. So I'm happy for any kind of initial comment on either of those things. But Jonathan, put your hand up.
Thanks, Richie. I put my hand up in order to answer one question, and now find I've got several. I think in terms of the report, I don't disagree with you in terms of what it's trying to cover. More than happy in the development session to perhaps look at how we deal with financial risks, its relationship with medium-term financial planning, for example, and then the in-year monitoring position and so on, because all of these things sit in an environment that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So more than happy to kind of explore what the right way of getting these points across are going to be. In terms of your question about relying on data, not only are we trying to obviously get better sets of data that I mentioned earlier, but actually the awareness and perhaps that collaborative working is showing and reaping the rewards of actually us working together, not only across health and social care, but social care to social care within the council, for example, and that awareness that we've captured as part of our budget setting process for 26-27 around children in particular, I think has been enhanced because of the relationships that have been built and the understanding that's been gained there. Obviously, we don't know 100% of the information because people's lives keep changing day by day, and people move day by day. So from that point of view, there's not an absolute in that respect. But what I'm certainly conscious of is that the team are more aware of, I suppose, the drivers for cost, and the cost coming from not only the combination of care packages, the quantum of that care package, the extent of the need, but the costs that are rising. So definitely a conversation that will be continuing as a senior team. Another one that Lakshmi will be heavily involved in, actually then moving us forward in terms of just trying to maintain that point that you're raising, and rightly, how do we just get better and better at understanding that information in order that we can not second guess but pre-plan for a number of scenarios perhaps, and give ourselves the best opportunity to balance those budgets and prepare for the financial constraints and challenges that lie ahead.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jonathan. Really, really helpful. Good points. Thank you. Fiona, do you want to come in on the back of that?
Yeah, happy to. And I'm watching Lakshmi really comfortably. Day 7, I just want to keep the smile on Lakshmi's face, so we're not scaring her. But anyway, yeah, really like to pick up some of the points about the children transitioning, Richie, and the additional care patches for elderly. So we've done a lot of work over the last year round about that understanding of children that are going to transition to adult services that have got high needs. So, you know, fantastic support that people have had in children's services, and great to see people living longer than they would have with really complex health needs. So I've said it before and I'll say it again, you know, our first young person that transitioned 3 years ago was the first one we'd had in Aberdeen City. It feels that it's hard to believe, but it's the reality of, you know, so medicine and advances and all the nice stuff that's happening are enabling people to live longer. So I think we've definitely had a lot of learning over the last wee while, and as I say, we have a much more robust pathway now, so we understand, Richie, that demand that's coming of people that live within city already. So I think hopefully we won't see that spikes like we have had in the last couple of years. The additional care packages for older people, I think our Ageing Well agenda, that's one of the other reasons it's a key part of our strategic plan. How do we keep people well? How do we keep them fit and healthy? How do we enable people to live independently in their own homes? And that transition that we really need to get us into a different place round about that. I think It's early days, so as you're aware, we've shifted the balance of care from Rosewell and are still going through that process at the minute. But we are we've increased discharge to assess, so that was the model that we're moving to. If Nicola McLean was here, she's much more articulate than I am, and Amy can come in if I've got this wrong, but we're already starting to see the benefits of that model, Richie. So we started the model at the end of November. I'm slightly out of touch maybe by a month or so, but a month ago we had nobody that had come through that package, through that process that service that we've now set up that then needed to go on for additional care, which is fantastic. We have seen a number of people go to a care home from the team, and we're getting underneath that and trying to understand why, because that wasn't one of the outcomes that we were hoping to see. So we're working really closely with Red Cross round about that. But I think that new model service, as I say, Nicola is very passionate about it, really believes that the difference it's making. So that's that opportunity we can wrap around people in their own homes with a real enablement focus so that we get them back living as independently as they possibly can. I think it's things like that. So it's I keep saying to the team, and I'm sure they're sick of it, there's many different bits of the jigsaw, and what we're trying to do is pull it all together. But I think that discharge to assess model that we're doing, it's the right thing to do. And I think we're starting to see the benefits of that in the short time that it has been up and running. We've already increased, we got additional money from unscheduled care, money that came in from the government to increase that hours rapidly. So before we had actually closed Rosewell, we've increased up to 1,000 hours extra a week of additional support that's going into the community to keep people in their own homes and enable them. And as I say, we're monitoring that really closely, and I think it's the right thing to do, and we're starting to see the benefits of it. So again, hopefully that will help us to reduce that demand coming through on additional care packages if we can get that enablement and get people living with digital and that real enablement focus to live independent or as independently as they possibly can. Thank you.
That's great, Fiona. That's really reassuring. And also, just across the two, between yourself, Fiona, and Jonathan, that can joining up in alignment around the kind of service changes alongside the financial projections is really good. So, no, thanks. Great to hear that. Okay, we're conscious of time, folks, and let's cover off the recommendations then in terms of the Q3 update. Again, I'm not going to read them word for word, but they are on pages 17 and 18. And the recommendations are 2.1 A, 1 and 2, and B, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Are we happy to approve those recommendations, folks?
Agreed.
Yep, agreed.
Excellent. Thank you for that. In terms of time, I know we're scheduled for an hour and a half. We're going to go a few minutes beyond 11:30. Is that okay? Just in order to complete the agenda. Great. Thanks. So no, Jonathan.
My apologies, Richie. I've got to go and chair another meeting. I will have to drop off the call. Apologies.
Yeah, no, understood. It's my first meeting as chair, and I've kind of failed in terms of the time test, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow of conversation. So, no, that's fine. Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, in that case, can we jump onto 5.1? No pressure, Jamie, in terms of the timescales, but we'll do your papers diligently. But Jamie.
Thanks, Richie. Thank you. Standard update report providing the committee with details of progress of the internal audit plan and then the follow-up of recommendations. With regards to the actual contents of the report, you'll see from the progress section that we continue to deliver the plan, and we're well underway with finalising the current year's work. The position reflected was that as the reporting deadline, and I'm pleased to say we're further ahead as of today. But thank you and welcome any questions.
Yep. Thanks, Jamie. That was a good update report. Straightforward, I thought, but again, never be presumptuous. Any questions, folks? Are we happy to note that? All good. Okay.
Agreed.
Noted, Jamie. Agreed. Thank you. And then if we move on to 5.2 again, Jamie.
Thank you, Richard. So this review was undertaken to assess whether the Health and Social Care Partnership has adequate plans and processes in place to manage its current and future workforce requirements. The review focused on actions taken to address challenges identified in the current workforce plan and then compliance with the Health and Care Staffing Act. With regards to the actual framework of control, I've been able to take reasonable assurance, which I think is positive, and I see the risk being managed to a moderate level. But again, we've got officers here who can provide further details from an operational perspective, but I'm also happy to take any questions.
Perfect, Jamie. Thank you for that. Again, members, committee, are we any questions or queries on this one? John?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. One is that I think this is really good legislation. It's doing the right thing. One comment though would be it's much easier to recruit folk if you're in the Central Belt than it is if you're up here in Aberdeen or indeed in the Shire or in Murray, because in the Central Belt you can move from one IJB or health board to another and commute without moving house. If you're up here or if you're out in Argyll and Bute or somewhere, it's trickier. So that would be just one comment. My other question is around the reporting requirements. It's absolutely right to see that we're the IJBs are following the legislation. Good to have reporting to see whether the legislation is working or not. But I just wondered if anyone's able to comment on what happens to the reports that go to Scottish Government. Is it a tick box exercise, and do the reports just like gather dust on a shelf somewhere, or is there some kind of systemic analysis of what's going on?
Sandy, do you want to have a first crack at that one?
Yeah, I've just got this vision of a dusty office, John, you're giving me there. But a couple of things. Just picking up the first point, John, and one thing we haven't mentioned a lot today, although we've got a lot of challenging recruitment challenges, one thing is we're trying to put a lot of focuses on better retaining people, keeping them here, because clearly keeping them here is better than trying to recruit somebody because they're already here. So I think we're conscious, kind of our culture collectively, what can we do to keep people and retain people? People would talk about, you don't leave organizations, you leave line managers. So what are we doing to ensure that people are welcome and feel welcome and want to work and remain and flourish in our partnerships? I think that, just because we haven't mentioned retention a lot, it's not just about recruitment. And I guess the feedback loop, Jamie might want to add to this, but I mean, I know that things we send in to NHS, to Grampian, when wind them way to, in terms of the Act, wind away to Scottish Government, who then reflect back to Grampian and reflect back to us. So there is a fairly active feedback loop. Bear in mind, some of our reporting is done through the Grampian lens, as well as separately. I'll maybe just leave that there.
Thanks, Sandy. Fiona, you want to come in just firstly, in terms of just either, why would you go to Martin?
Martin maybe wants to say what I'm going to say, but we do have to publish as well. So the reports that we submit, John, we do have to publish that on our websites. Thanks.
Martin, want to add to that?
Yeah, just maybe part of one of the recommendations is looking at the terms of reference for the Clinical Care Governance Committee, and I think it's important to kind of make it relevant and meaningful to that committee, so they're getting the assurance around this Act. So maybe that will kind of mitigate against the kind of, I suppose, just doing it for the sake of doing it. I think let's make it meaningful for the committee, so they can have a role in this.
Yeah,
thanks. Thanks. And reassured by Sandy's comments and Martin's comments on the kind of feedback loop, but it's kind of like whenever I see anything being reported, I have the same question in my head. So it's not really specific to this piece of work. It's about, is the reporting helpful? And yeah, Sandy's point about retention, I think that was one of the points that came out at the conference the other week, around the fact that we are quite good at retaining people, and I think you're spot on that people don't leave organisations, they leave line managers. So no, thanks for that. I'm reassured.
That's great. Thank you, John. From my perspective, again, the report is very positive. I did acknowledge the management response in terms of the actions they've agreed to, and clearly it would be remiss not to acknowledge that the one major kind of finding that was there, again, is a fulsome response to. So maybe just check in with Jamie. Jamie, you're content in terms of the management responses to these ones, in particular the finding around the major implications or assessment that you found?
Through yourself, Richie, yes, I am. So the updates from management have even been coming through on this report already. So hopefully see them closed off through the reporting cycle.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, folks. So Anything else on this one, folks, or are we happy to agree the recommendations on page 39, 2.1A?
Agreed.
Agreed?
Yep, agreed.
Okay, great, thank you. And then also, finally, Jamie, for you today, internal audit plan 26-29.
Thanks, Richard. So yes, here to present and seek approval for the internal audit plan for 2026-29. And where it is a 3-year plan, I welcome comments on the whole report. My focus will be on the next year, so 26-27. The plan will then be reassessed each year as we always look to have a 3-year rolling programme of work. The work for the plan started back in October, and in terms of development, the document sets out the consultation process I've went through, including discussion with stakeholders, review of previous work, engagement with other assurance providers, and benchmarking against other IJBs in their planned reviews. The result is what I think is a very balanced plan. It's one that addresses the core functions of assurance, but also adds value to the IJB. So here to answer any questions and hopefully receive your approval. But just a few final kind of housekeeping points from myself. In terms of timing, if the plan is agreed by committee, I'll reach out to officers and agree the timings for the individual reviews. This will look at matching internal audit's resource, but also recognising the business as usual and other commitments. The plan includes 1 or 2 lines on the high-level scope of each review. I don't intend, and I won't be in a position today to go into depth on the actual full details of the reviews. This will come as part of the scoping and planning progress before each audit, with subsequent reports presented to committee as they are completed. Thanks, Richie, and again, welcome any questions.
Great, thanks, Jamie. And just again, from my perspective, I find that with any audit process, whether it's internal or external, to me adds value. So it's not just about bluntly fault finding. It is about adding value in terms of how we go about our business and being sure that that's effective. So I really appreciate that. And also that point around how the forward plan is developed is really important collaboratively. So again, it is, and I'll maybe just get again a quick comment from Fiona in a second around. I guess you've got to be satisfied from an internal audit perspective. This could satisfy what you require, but equally from an officer perspective that that this kind of hits the mark in terms of the areas that we want to be assured around as well. So before I bring in Martin, Fiona, Jamie or Fiona, anything to add just in terms of those headline comments from me?
So I'll start. So Jamie absolutely does this in collaboration. So the audit, so we take guidance from him, but we have the opportunity to suggest and ask for audits to be done in areas that we would like that confirmation or assurance, or identify where we've potentially got gaps. And I think that was one of the Health and Care Staffing Act. We knew that everything wasn't perfect, and I think that's why I was really keen that we got the audit there, because it will help us to address, because it's just a different lens. You know, when we're in the middle of it all, it's not always the easiest thing to identify. So I think that's where our internal audits are really helpful, to help us to identify that gap so we can address them in a timely manner. Thanks, Richie.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie.
Yeah, I agree, Rich. You know, so I could maybe just say slightly wider. You see the kind of internal audit plan there, but out with that, I've got weekly, sometimes daily engagement with the IJB, the Health Social Care Partnership, NHS Grampian. We do the formal audit reviews, but there's always that kind of consultancy, that management assurance, which all goes on across the board.
That's very reassuring. Thanks both. Martin.
Thank you, Richie. Could I just ask on page 73, page 7 of the plan, why is civil contingencies a priority for the IJB to be audited? Just to get some understanding of that, and because for me that I would have thought performance management would be more important, but maybe I don't know. There's probably a reason why civil contingencies is scheduled for 27-28.
Martin, do you want to pick this one up?
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Richie. Yeah, so the IJBs across Scotland became Category 1 responders under the Civil Contingency Act 2004 in 2021. So that's already 5-6 years ago. We have arrangements in place. I think it would be good to have an internal audit similar to what Fiona's saying about seeing if there's any gaps in insurance, etc. So I think it'll be a welcome audit for the IJB and the Health and Social Care Partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Jamie?
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, Martin described it much clearer than I could. But I was just saying, I'm sure you've not said, Councillor Gregg, but the year of the review doesn't in any way indicate an importance. It's an assurance cycle, something we always come back on. So performance management is actually something we've looked at fairly recently. So again, it's just part of kind of the overall cycle. But whether something in 26, 27, 28, 29 in no way place any importance. They're all part of the kind of wider assurance work.
Thank you, and could you please call me Martin? Thank you.
That's great. Thanks both for that. Okay, folks, we've discussed and reviewed the internal audit plan, and the recommendations for this one is on page 63. Can we approve the plan as set out?
Agreed.
Yep, agreed.
Great. Thanks very much. Okay, folks, that takes us to the end of committee. I think just conscious it's 11:39. And I don't know if this is a great message for a first meeting or no, but I'm really keen that we allow enough time to do our role. So maybe as part of the development session, I know we've got set aside an hour and a half, but just again, to put a flyer out there today, I think we might need to nudge that forward half an hour to make it maybe a couple of hours, just so we've got that diaried, so we don't run short of time. Again, I'm a little bit conscious about future agendas and the scope and depth of them. So I don't want to burn more time into people's diaries, but I do want to make sure we do our job efficiently and properly, just in terms of the committee. So just a wee heads up, but we can cover it at the development session perhaps as well. But beyond that, let's draw the meeting to a close. Can I thank everybody for your reports, your inputs today, and your time this morning. Thanks very much, and we shall catch up with you soon. Thanks, folks.
Thanks.
Cheerio.
Bye.